Welcome to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference, empowering the good, and we love talking about corporate philanthropy. In this case, International Paper. We're honored to be joined by Rachel Ozols Purdom. She is the Community Engagement Coordinator with International Paper. How are you doing, Rachel?
Hey, Jeremy, I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you do a lot of good globally, regionally, and locally, and we'll talk all about that. But let's start when you talk about International Paper overall, the work you do. Give us some context around International Paper.
Yeah, so International Paper is a leading global supplier of renewable fiber-based products. So we produce corrugated packaging products that protect and promote goods and enable worldwide commerce. We create pulp for diapers, tissue, and other personal care products that promote health and wellness. And obviously, we're headquartered here in Memphis, but we employ approximately 38,000 folks globally.
Give me something that has impressed you when you talk about International Paper and the work you do. You mentioned the diapers. That one, that's an interesting fact, if you will. But give me something that has impressed you about International Paper.
Yeah, I think it's the employees. I remember when I first started, everybody that I ran into, and this was like kind of height of the pandemic last year in November, you expect people to be like, oh, I've been here 3 years, I've been here 5 years. It is rare if you meet somebody who is less than 10 years. So it'll be, just the longevity. People want to get out and volunteer. They're so excited. The amount of emails and conversations that I have about getting connected to nonprofit partners, it just makes my job so fun.
So why is community engagement so important in International Paper globally and locally?
Yeah, so I think everybody kind of understands that there is this want to be very proud of who you work for. And, you want to see your company doing good. And there's been all of these studies about employee engagement and just general pride and being out in the community. So I just think it's very important that people see, one, the good work that their company is doing and feel like they have a piece in that. And it can't just be from a headquarters standpoint. You want to get everybody involved and make that possible. And, our community engagement team at our headquarters is very small, but we have these incredible people at our facilities nationally and internationally who lead the community engagement efforts with us and make it possible. And the impact is just incredible.
Talk about the team, talk about the setup, the pillars of focus. Give us some background on your world.
Yeah, so the company as a whole, and I can really speak to the community engagement piece of this, but we've set these goals, which we call Vision 2030. And this is just our strategic framework for pursuing our vision to be among the most successful, sustainable, and responsible companies in the world. And we can't do that alone. So from a community engagement standpoint, our overall goal is to improve the lives of 100 million people in the communities. And a lot of people ask, how in the world are you going to do that? So we track a lot of impact, and we utilize strategic partnerships globally, nationally, and locally to meet needs. And we also, like I said, we have our facility folks who work with us because they see the need in their own communities. I can't always see that here from Memphis. So they kind of help us use this strategy and, solidify the organizations that are important and are doing good work in their communities. So all of that to say, we have 4 signature causes that we try to focus on. And the first one, and probably our biggest, is education. We believe that the future of our communities depends on our children. So we support partners that are helping students succeed via a comprehensive approach to education. We also have a signature cause of hunger. So food banks, other agencies that are, working to improve and help food insecure individuals. Health and wellness is another signature cause. This is more from an employee engagement standpoint. So, our St. Jude run, those types of things where we're promoting healthy living habits, but also giving back to a good cause. And then finally, disaster relief, which is, national, global standpoint, but we partner with organizations that help our communities prepare for and recover from natural disasters. So that's really how we kind of focus in with our signature causes and getting to the people and the folks that need it most.
Within any one of those 4, give me an example. Let's start global, and then we'll kind of work our way down to the local level, but give us an example of how that plays out globally.
Yeah, so Global Food Banking Network is a big partner of ours. that kind of hits our hunger standpoint, and we're able to touch a lot of lives that way. And then reading is fundamental. We work with RIF for short nationally to give books and classroom kits to schools all over the country. American Red Cross, another big one that we partner with as far as the disaster relief piece. And then two that I think kind of hit close to home or are relevant for right now. So there's a group called Wreaths Across America. They're actually a longtime customer of IP, but they go around in the wintertime, December, and they lay wreaths on the tombs of fallen heroes, fallen veterans. So IP has been supporting them through the purchase of wreaths. We donate wreath boxes, and we also have volunteers. So that usually happens around December 17th. It's always on a Saturday. So that's a really cool national partnership that we have that I just think is relevant right now. And then the last one I want to touch on, Arbor Day Foundation, which is a newer partner for us, but some cool statistics here. So we started partnering with them in 2019. And since then, we have planted and distributed more than 286,000 trees and reforested more than 525 acres of public land in Florida, Georgia, and other areas following natural disasters. So a few of the more global national groups that we work with that are just incredible and really all over the place. It's pretty unreal.
Yeah. And before we talk about the local, I want to touch on a couple things. One is obviously the alignment. When you talk about sustainability and the tree planting and how that ties into international paper, what you do, the purpose, there's an alignment piece. And I'm thinking, lessons learned for other companies and corporate leaders, especially. So the alignment, I think, is powerful. Two, then when you look at being able to leverage everything that is in your asset base. So in other words, it's the in-kind donations, like you mentioned, the boxes. It's also obviously the volunteerism with your team physically serving. It's the financial contributions. So in other words, when you look across all the different things that you do at International Paper, there are many different ways you can support and help nonprofits and lift the community. I think those are important things for other business leaders, is looking at, okay, what do I have as my assets? How can I leverage those? And then also, too, obviously, what aligns with my higher purpose and my philanthropic statement? What difference am I trying to make in this world that aligns with what we do? And I think those are all important lessons. What would you kind of add to that before we dive in locally?
Yeah, so I think you really hit the nail on the head. And honestly, I get the opportunity and the joy of working with a lot of other corporations here in Memphis. Memphis is so blessed to have incredible companies here headquartered. And I think everybody is doing that. It's what are we good at? What can we provide? And we have this, huge supply chain background and, things along those lines. We do a lot of, in volunteerism that's folks going out, like Seeding Success, will help with a lot of the Greenbelt trainings and things like that. So everybody is so strategic in the way that they give and the time that they give. And it's, I think it's just a really incredible thing to be a part of.
Absolutely. So let's dive in locally. And so this is your world for sure. When you talk about local impact, you've kind of mentioned, obviously, the 4 areas of focus, but talk about some of the things that warm your heart that you're doing locally.
Yeah, so this was the most recent. We have an employee giving campaign that runs in September here in Memphis specifically. And we did 2 Day of Caring volunteer events. So we sent out over 350 volunteers, employee volunteers, and they went to organizations all over Memphis. So just a few, there was a lot more than this, but Porter Leaf, Mid-South Food Bank, Shelby Farms, Wolf River Conservancy, and they just kind of got after it. And seeing everybody come together for the first time in, 2+ years and be so excited to go spend their morning and give back has been really impressive. So I absolutely love my job. I get to work with nonprofits every single day and volunteers. And so it's pretty amazing.
What's been the feedback from the employees, from the team members?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is, we have the folks that have been at IP for a really long time and they know the nonprofits that they love and they go to, but we're also seeing an influx of new employees, which is fantastic. And so I think the way to really fall in love with a city, and the way that I fell in love with Memphis, was through a job with Volunteer Odyssey. I know you're familiar with them. Is just, you realize, number one, what the need is, and the people who are just spending day and night trying to help each other. And it's Memphis specifically is just such a community. And so seeing people go out and meet a new nonprofit that they might not have known of, or, you know, work with kids, or just be able to like really have a tangible experience and then come back and talk about that or reach out to me. Another piece is the amount of employees that reach out and say, hey, I'm so involved with, you know, X organization. Is there any way we can support them? And teaching me is really cool too. So it's such a circular and exciting thing. And the fact that we have employees that are so excited and willing to give back in that way is a cool experience.
You mentioned Volunteer Odyssey, and that's where you and I met years ago. And so following your, you know, path and trajectory has been amazing, but this is your world for sure. It's been it for a long time. And so when you look at transitioning from Volunteer Odyssey to now, obviously, when you talk about creating these volunteer experiences, what's something that you've taken with you from Volunteer Odyssey as a lesson learned, an experience, a foundation that you've been able to bring to International Paper when it comes around creating, you know, great experiences for volunteers and, you know, likewise working with the nonprofits to make it effective and efficient?
Yeah, 1,000 things. But the first one that comes to mind is I remember, you know, Dr. Sarah Petchenik, her biggest thing was like, you can't have any hoops. Like it needs to just be, volunteers have to understand the impact. They have to know all of the details. Where do I park? Where do I go? Like just from this really logistical standpoint. So when I go to work with a nonprofit to create events, I know the questions to ask because of my work with Volunteer Odyssey and the lessons I learned from Sarah and Dannon and Alexandra and that incredible team, is just making sure the details are there because you want people to want to go back. And luckily, Memphis has just this insanely fruitful nonprofit community, and they all know that, and they're so good at it. So I think that is the biggest piece and what has been really cool to kind of take from a nonprofit standpoint in my background to a more corporate setting.
Well, it's important too, because all of this is around how do you make the volunteers feel? And to your point, there is as much of the heart side as just the business logistics side and making sure that, you know, everything from parking, registration, check-in, like all of those types of things. I want to know that what I'm doing matters. And is there an impact moment? Like all of those little things add up to really make people feel connected to the cause and the mission, but ultimately carry that forward to create a relationship with a nonprofit, which is what you want as well.
Yeah. It's
one more thing that you think is important for other business leaders when they're putting together volunteer experiences for their teams, what's one more bit of advice?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, you know, just making sure that they understand the impact. So kind of, you know, talking about IP, we have this giant goal of improving the lives of 100 million people. That is our community engagement strategy by 2030. So number one, making sure that they understand the overall impact. What are we trying to get to? Why is this important? And IP, I think, does an incredible job of really talking about that. So, you know, through all of these things that we're doing, the volunteerism, national partnerships here in Memphis, giving, we have, our impact right now is 13 million people. And I know that. Other people know that are in the company, and everybody wants to make it to that goal. That just is, it feels so good. So I think just having goalposts and talking about that. And then the other piece is most of my data is from 2021, just because that's the most robust, but we had a 13% increase in recorded volunteer efforts in 2021, which I think is incredible just from the standpoint of, you know, that was kind of a really weird time in the pandemic. So being able to talk about the data side of it, even though it's not the most exciting, I think it's just something to work towards and communicating with your employees.
Yeah, well, being able to measure it and have those guideposts, like you said, the goalposts are really important. And especially when you talk about casting the vision, getting people behind it and understanding where we are and where we want to go. I think all of that is that's leadership, philanthropic leadership for sure.
Yeah, agreed.
Talk about, from your standpoint, a recent award. And so there's been some recognition come your way for sure.
Yeah. So just this past week, we heard from the American Forest and Paper Association, AF&PA, which is really our industry standard. They have this Better Practices, Better Planet 2030 Sustainability Awards. And this recognizes exemplary sustainability programs and initiatives in the paper and wood products manufacturing industry. So International Paper, we just received their first sustainability award in the diversity, equity, and inclusion category for our Fighting Period Poverty in Our Communities program. And I'll tell you a little bit about that just because this is another cool local, national, international piece of international paper. So stewardship is a core value of ours. We talked about that a little bit. And we also recognize that our products are valuable and essential. So if you go back to that pulp, the diapers and feminine care products. So in 2019, so a little bit before my time, IP began focusing on how can we help? How can we use this? So through a partnership with Procter & Gamble and their Always product, we started these feminine care packing kits. And a few just quick kind of staggering statistics, because honestly, before this, I did not realize, unfortunately, just the overall need. So each year, more than 500 million people worldwide do not have what they need during their monthly periods, which is a staggering statistic in itself. And that's just an issue that leads to a number of problems: truancy, reproductive issues, unnecessary shame. And then the other statistic that came out recently is it used to be 1 in 5 girls in 2019 that didn't have access to products. After the pandemic in 2021, that number changed to 1 in 4. So IP, this feels like a very fixable problem. So IP started working with Procter & Gamble and Always, and just buying products in bulk and sending them out to all of our facilities, and created this volunteer project where facilities nationally, globally here in Memphis can pack 500 to 1,000 feminine care kits, choose an organization to give them to, and send them out to be distributed to menstruators. So it's just a cool project from start to finish when you kind of talk about, having these incredible products and using them for good in our communities. This is one of the big ways we do that.
Absolutely. Awesome stuff. Wrap up with some words of encouragement when you look at closing out this year, having a great 2023, especially for other corporate leaders who want to make a difference. What are some words of encouragement?
Yeah, I think just keep going. I think we've seen a lot of people become homebodies during the pandemic, which I understand completely, not always being in the office and getting out there. So I encourage everybody to not forget about our nonprofit partners, especially here in Memphis. It's just what I can speak best to. There is just a gigantic need in the community. So especially during these last couple months, find a nonprofit that speaks to you and get out there and volunteer and give your time and your resources, whatever you can, and get involved.
We'll wrap up with contact information. So website, social media, where do we go to learn more about International Paper?
Yeah, so you can visit our website, www.internationalpaper.com. We're also on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, all that good stuff as International Paper. So you can check out more there.
Well, Rachel, thank you for all you and your amazing team do. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. Good to see you.